12 minutes.
Hello, everyone. We will talk about how to foster a data driven culture in an organization in order to make it an AI first enterprise. So, I have put together, based on my experiences, some of the things that I have observed across different organizations and think the key pillars of making a data centric organization. So the first one is democratizing insights. This is about everyone has the right access to data governed by proper data governance policies so that they are not obstructed by business analyst teams bandwidth, etc. So they have the right access to data and they are able to make insights on a day-to-day basis for their business decisions. So democratizing insights is one of the key components of driving a data-driven culture in an organization. They should be also data empowered, which means they don't know the basic SQL queries and things like that, but they are able to drag and drop and do very lightweight tasks to be more data driven, and hence they are on their own to derive the insights. And I'm fundamentally talking about your classic product organizations or business organizations. How do we unblock them from the bandwidth of the core data organization in a company, and how can data be democratized to them so that they can do insights day in and day out. The second factor is whether the company is run by opinions or it is run by facts is a very important thing. This is a famous quote by Jim Barksdale, Netscape CEO. If we have data, then let's look at data. If all have opinions, then let's go with mine, right? So how much an organization is more opinion oriented than fact oriented plays a critical role in delivering a data driven culture in an organization. Do you often hear, I think, I know? Or instead of that, do people back their claims or back their decisions with because a certain data showed this, or because our sales was moving in this direction, or because our competitors have been going in a certain strategy, or we saw in the last experiment a particular strategy worked vis-a-vis what we are trying to do now, and hence we would like to go back to that strategy, right? Do we hear conversations like this? Or are there boardroom conversations where people say that I think this is the right way to go about, or I know I've been in the business for long enough, so I really understand my consumers, I understand my customers, I understand how our vendors work, and hence we should do this. So which of these will determine which direction the organization is going? So from I think and I know culture, it is very important to leadership and the execs to move in a direction of fact finding and supporting their decisions with facts. Do people, and even when certain decisions are made for which data is not readily available, are they stating out assumptions? Because some of the times the assumptions is where things go wrong, but if you have stated the assumptions and when things go wrong, that's one place that you can check and go back to go back to the drawing board and cultivate a new strategy. So whether an organization is oriented opinion or towards facts is very important in determining the data driven culture. Next comes, how does a company facilitate challenging of decisions, right? So is it very hierarchical, like someone took a decision and then if a set of people want to contradict the decision, is it only through hierarchy? Can you should go to your boss's boss, etc., to challenge the decision? Or is it through influence, like I know this person, I'll go with the I'll go on a dinner with this person and hence can change the decision? Or is it rooted in core data, and how do decisions get challenged? So do people say data shows this and hence we should look at this angle as well, or the current angle that we have chosen is not supportive of data and hence we should rethink or invest in a better experimentation here than by going with what the current decisions is? Once decision is made, does an organization let key stakeholders or the key team members in a company to question the decision, or is it extremely hierarchical, or kind of who knows who kind of influence based? That is also very detrimental in determining which course of path an organization is taking. Is it going towards a data driven company, or is it going far away from that and continues to be rooted in its traditions? The next thing is path to automate decisions, right? So what does this mean? I think data science is about automating decisions, right? Like how how ERP systems automated workflows, right? Data science automates decisions, right? And not every organization is at a point where all decisions can be data led. They all decisions can still be data supported. For example, you have a hypothesis and you're validating whether the hypothesis is correct or not, and hence you're saying if X happens, do this, right? So that is data supported because you got your own hypothesis based on your based on past experiments or based on past experiences, and you're just supporting that with data. From that path, it is very important a company recognizes the value in going to data led. And what is data led? Where the hypotheses are generated by the machine. Hypotheses are coming at scale and experimented at scale by algorithms, by data, by making sure the right instrumentations in place and right feedback is in place, etc. So it's important companies recognize that they should go into the path of data led, even if they are at the stage of data supported. And maybe there are few processes that is data led, and then the company has a right roadmap to get to data led. Right, so it is important to charter that. It's important to question some of the beliefs the organization might have. For example, a fraud system might be, a lot of them may be heuristic driven, and a lot of them may be handcrafted rules based on what a fraud or a risk manager saw, how things happened in the market. And do we have the power to change it? Can this become more machine led? Can this become more algorithmic? Can this become more data led? Is very important to drive and to get to the data culture. So even if the organization currently, let's say it's a startup, it is just starting, and then it's a wise decision to start experimenting with rules. But do you have a path and a willingness and intent and the right set of talent to move to a data led culture? So another example of how data first organizations work is, how does your non-data native teams take it, right? So the non-data native teams are teams that we generally do not associate as core data, right? Although I personally believe that data belongs to everyone and everybody should equally use the data, not just restricted to the data analytics or the data science team, right? So the non-data native teams are people who do not come from a data background or traditionally have not used in their data decisions. So take a function like HR or take a functions like marketing or sales, where data possibly is used minimally, but they are non-data native teams, right? But if how do they do goal setting? Now, if an organization is at a point where your non-data native teams are able to state goals and through facts rather than through opinions, an organization has reached a certain level of maturity. Can a company encourage its not so data native teams to talk about data, to look at data and set their goals, to look at key points and then measure it? For example, the much widely talked about discussion on remote working versus working from office. What is the right balance? If an HR organization, for instance, conducts experiments at scale or collects feedback from its employees, analyzes it, and then say what stands out and what not stands out, rather than only taking a decision through the strategy that they think is right. Now that's data driven culture. And effectively, the exec team in a company should encourage their non-data native teams to invest in data and their understanding and insights, again through democratization of insights, which we talked about as the first point. But it is important, and an adoption of a data in an organization can be measured with the adoption of data in their data native teams. The experimentation madness is what I want to call. How mad as a company are you about experimentation? How obsessed are you with experimentation? Now that can't happen without a core infrastructure in place. At the fall of a hat, can you go on AB experiments or even better multivariate experiments to test anything? So that is experimentation madness. That is going to come with establishing, even as product companies build their product, is experimentation a core product part of their product? Can they run hypothesis and strategy experiments at scale? That's one important thing to keep in mind as infrastructure gets built in the organization. But other than infrastructure, one of the key things that is very important for experimentation is a culture which has an appetite to fail and acknowledges its failures, right? In a lot of times in the MBR or QBR or OKR meetings, we're talking about what worked. But for everything that worked, there are 10 things that should have failed. That means you have experimented the landscape to pick the best one, right? So as a culture, do we talk about failures? Do we talk about what did not go well, and hence you know what to fix? And you are also telling the rest of the team that it is okay to fail, but it is more important to take that risk and make that experiment happen. To conclude, organizational leaders are considered deciders at one point, but I would like to say that they are not deciders, but they are enablers of decisions through democratic data led processes. And as a leader of an organization, we should all see how we are enabling decision making rather than deciding. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was Mathangi Sri talking about fostering data driven culture. And let me tell you, coming from the sides of analytics AI, I've seen it for last 2 decades. I think the fundamental challenge what organizations, enterprises, across all sizes are facing or formats are facing is a very high significance they need to put around data. We often tout data as the new oil or the new currency, but what's happening, the significance in terms of capturing right data, the significance in terms of creating the right data fabric to draw insights, also the significance to kind of create the right data engine is often understated. And this is the reason Matangi was trying to allude in terms of how organizational uh, alignment in terms of capturing the real essence of data and also the value of data needs to come in. Thank you so much, Matangi, for your time. Really appreciate.